Dr. Aris Thorne lived a life of precise measurements and undeniable facts. His lab, tucked away in a quiet corner of a prestigious research institute, was a symphony of humming machinery. And the faint smell of sterile chemicals, he wasn't one for celebrity, gossip, or chart-topping hits. His world revolved around DNA sequences, protein folding, and the intricate dance of life at its most microscopic level. He'd spent years decoding complex genetic puzzles, but nothing could have prepared him for the package that arrived one crisp autumn morning. It was delivered by a nervous-looking man in an expensive suit who treated the small sealed container with a reverence usually reserved for ancient artifacts. "Dr. Thorne," the man had said, his voice hushed, "this is an incredibly sensitive and valuable sample. Our client requires the utmost discretion and, of course, your unparalleled expertise." Aris, a man in his late 30s, with perpetually tired eyes hidden behind thick-rimmed glasses, had simply nodded. He dealt with high-stakes samples before rare disease vectors, ancient biological matter. But as he unwrapped the protective layers, a chill, unrelated to the lab's air conditioning, ran down his spine. Inside, nestled in a cryogenic vial, was a tiny, almost invisible strand. Its label was simple, yet world-changing. Presley, E. Aney. Elvis Presley, the king. Aris blinked. He wasn't a fan, but even he knew the name. The man in the suit, explained the client, was a reclusive collector, obsessed with preserving historical legacies. They wanted the DNA, analyzed, sequenced, and securely archived. Nothing more, nothing less. Aris accepted the job, intrigued. Despite himself, it was a scientific challenge regardless of the celebrity attached. For the next few days, the Elvis sample became his sole focus. He prepared the instruments, calibrated the sequencers, and double-checked every setting with meticulous care. His assistant, a bright-eyed young woman named Maya, hovered excitedly. Maya was the opposite of Aris, a bundle of energy, perpetually humming pop songs. And, as Aris soon discovered, a massive Elvis fan. "Can you believe it, Dr. Thorne?" she'd gushed, watching him pipetting minuscule amounts of liquid. "We're literally holding a piece of Elvis. Do you think he had like a special gene for hip shaking? Or for that voice?" Aris had merely grunted, adjusting his microscope. "Gens determine traits, Maya, but charisma and talent are complex, a combination of genetics, environment, and sheer practice." He didn't believe in magic, only in what the data showed. As the Sibilingi band, the machines whirred to life, projecting intricate patterns of A's, T's, C's, and G's onto his multiple screens. Millions of base pairs scrolled by, forming the instruction manual for a human being. Aris worked methodically, comparing the sequences to standard human gore names, looking for variations, unique markers. Most of it was standard. Then, on the third day, something flickered on his screen that made him pause. He was examining a specific region known to be associated with vocal cord development and auditory processing. Nothing immediately jumped out as wrong, but a particular cluster of genes seemed unusual. Not a mutation, not a defect, but a configuration he hadn't seen before. It was subtle, like a slightly different arrangement of building blocks, yet significant. "Whom?" he mumbled, zooming in. Maya, bringing him a cup of lukewarm coffee, peered over his shoulder. "Find anything interesting? Possibly in Beckett," Aris replied, dismissing her question and the data with a wave of his hand. "Sometimes the machines create anomalies. I'll rerun it." But even as he said it, a tiny scientific itch began to form in his mind. Configuration was too specific, too elegant to be a random error, he told himself. It was just a strange quirk of this particular sample. A unique genetic fingerprint for one unique individual. Yet the image of that unusual sequence stayed with him. A ghost in the machine whispering possibilities he wasn't ready to acknowledge. He initiated the rerun, a deep furrow appearing between his brows. King's DNA was already proving to be more complex than any of the ancient silent relics he was used to analyzing. It felt like it was humming, even in death, with some kind of profound, hidden energy. The lab lights hummed steadily, a stark contrast to the buzzing in Aris Thorne's mind. He had rerun the DNSC tuning for the Elvis sample, not once but 5 times. Each time the results were identical. The anomaly wasn't in back of the machine or contamination. It was real. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. On his main screen, a complex 3D rendering of the DNA helix shimmered, highlighting the specific region he'd been focused on. This section contained genes often linked to neural pathways, particularly those involved in processing, sound, emotion, and even motor control. Things that in combination could contribute to a performer's ability to move an audience. But this wasn't just a standard set of genes. It was like a master key, a unique sequence that seemed to amplify and synchronize the functions of several adjacent genes, creating a kind of super pathway. He'd never seen anything like it in any human genome database. It was as if this specific cluster of genes was custom built for well performance. Dr. Thorne? Maya's voice, usually bright, was tentative. She'd been watching him for the last hour, a concerned frown on her face. "Is everything all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." Aris gestured vaguely at the screen. "Come here, Maya. Tell me what you see." She stepped closer, her enthusiasm for Elvis momentarily replaced by scientific curiosity. He pointed to the highlighted section. "This region, it controls aspects of vocal cord, elasticity, pitch perception, and auditory motor synchronization. Standard stuff. But look at the arrangement here. This specific coding." Maya, who was still working on her doctorate, understood the basics. She squinted at the complex data. "It looks incredibly efficient," she mused. "Like it's streamlined, and these markers, they suggest a higher density of certain neural connections than usual." "Exactly," Aris said, his voice low, almost reverent. "It's like a dedicated superhighway for musical information. It would explain an unprecedented level of vocal control, a near-perfect pitch memory, and an ability to not just hear music, but feel it on a profoundly deep isn't that feeling." Maya's eyes widened. "So you're saying Elvis wasn't just talented, he was genetically predisposed to being the king?" Aris ran a hand through his already messy hair. "It was built into his very being." He paused, letting the enormity of the discovery sink in. "We're looking at something that could explain the very essence of what made Elvis Presley unique, not just a powerful voice, but a voice that could literally move mountains of emotion." Maya, the Elvis fan, was speechless. She looked from the complex genetic map on the screen to Aris, then back again. "So, all those stories about how his music just got to people, how it felt like he was singing directly to their souls. It wasn't just hype. It was, in part, biological." "It seems that way," Aris confirmed, a shiver of excitement and apprehension running through him. This wasn't just a scientific discovery, it was a revelation that blurred the lines between biology and art, between genetics and genius. He had found what he was beginning to call the melody core, a genetic signature that unlocked an unprecedented depth of musical expression and connection. The implications were staggering. If such a genetic configuration existed, what did it mean for human potential? Could others possess it? Could it be understood, perhaps even in some far-off future, racapate or stimulated? The questions spun in his head like a frenzied helix. This tiny, almost invisible strand of DNA wasn't just a piece of history. It was a potential blueprint for the future of music itself. And Aris Thorne, the man who preferred facts to fanfare, was suddenly holding the key. The implications of the melody core gene hit Aris Thorne like a tidal wave. For days, he practically lived in his lab, fueled by stale coffee and the exhilarating terror of his discovery. He ran more tests, cross-referenced more auditories, but the unique genetic sequence held true. It was real, embedded deep within Elvis's DNA, a biological maestro conductor for sound, emotion, and performance. He imagined the sheer power of it, a gene that didn't just facilitate musical talent, but supercharged it, allowing the individual to feel music with an almost unbearable intensity and transmit that feeling with uncanny precision. It was like having an internal amplifier for empathy and resonance, specifically tuned to the frequencies of sound. But with every new insight, a cascade of ethical questions flooded his mind. What should he do with this knowledge? Should he publish it? The scientific community would be unimaginable. Scientist finds Elvis's music gene. The thought made him cringe. Could this gene be isolated, replicated? The very idea sent a chill down his spine. Creating a genetically engineered king seemed like something out of a dystopian novel. It felt wrong, violating the unique essence of human artistry. What if someone tried to exploit it, to create a production line of manufactured talent, devoid of genuine struggle or passion? The thought was truly horrifying. He knew he couldn't keep it a secret forever. The discovery was too significant. But he also knew he couldn't just throw it out into the world without careful consideration. The potential for misuse was immense. He finally confided in Maya, who, after the initial shock and awe wore off, had become his sounding board. She sat across from him in his office, her usual bubbly energy subdued. "So, what do we do, Dr. Thorne?" she asked, her voice quiet. "This is bigger than anything. It changes everything we thought we knew about musical genius." Aris sighed, leaning back in his chair. "That's exactly it. It changes everything. Imagine if every musician, every singer, every docure could tap into this level of emotional connection, not by being genetically altered. No, never that. But by understanding this pathway, by learning to activate something similar within themselves. This gene doesn't create talent from nothing. It seems to amplify existing talent, to deepen the connection between the musician, the music, and the listener. It's about resonance. It's about feeling, so it's not about making another Elvis. It's about helping everyone find their own inner Elvis, their own core of musical feeling." "Exactly," Aris exclaimed, a rare smile touching his lips. "It's not about cloning or engineering. It's about understanding the biological basis of profound musical connection, and then finding ways to help people cultivate that connection naturally, perhaps through torque training, biofeedback, or even new forms of music therapy. It's about making music more deeply felt, more universally understood, and ultimately, more profoundly human. But we have to be incredibly careful. The initial headlines will be sensational. People will want to exploit it. We need to frame this discovery not as a way to create superhuman potential for experiencing and sharing music." Maya nodded, a determined look on her face. "So we don't just publish the DNA sequence. We propose a new field of study. Resonance kijokes, or something like that. Focused on understanding and fostering the human capacity. The melody core wasn't a secret to be hoarded, nor a blueprint to be mass-produced. It was a key to understanding why music moved us so deeply, and how we could all learn to move more deeply with it." He knew the road ahead would be challenging, fraught with skepticism and temptation. But for the first time, Aris Thorne, the man of facts, felt a warmth of purpose that transcended the sterile confines of his lab. He was on the cusp of changing music forever, not by altering human beings, but by helping them embrace the magic already within them. With the ethical storm partially weathered and a clear vision for the future, Aris Thorne dedicated himself to what he internally dubbed Project Melody. He knew that simply announcing the discovery of a music gene in Elvis's DNA would be met with sensationalism and skepticism. He needed more than just a genetic sequence. He needed a demonstrable concept, a practical application that showcased the potential of this discovery without resorting to genetic modification. His theory was refined. The melody core gene wasn't about creating talent, but umrifting neural pathways. It was like having a super efficient network in the brain specifically for processing and expressing musical emotion. Aris believed that while most people had these pathways, they weren't as refined or interconnected as in someone like Elvis. His goal was to develop a non-invasive method to train and enhance these existing pathways to help individuals tap into their own innate melody core potential. He started by building sophisticated neural imaging equipment, specifically designed to monitor brain activity during musical engagement. He wanted to identify the precise brain regions activated by the melody core gene's influence. It was slow, painstaking work. He spent countless nights poring over brain scans looking for patterns, for the subtle dance of neurons that translated sound into soul-stirring emotion. Maya became his indispensable partner. She wasn't just good with lab work. Her understanding of music, her passion for it, gave Aris a perspective he lacked. "It's like finding the secret recipe for empathy through sound, isn't it?" she'd commented one day, observing the brainwave patterns on a screen. "How to make someone truly feel what the music is trying to say." "Precisely," Aris agreed, a rare grin spreading across his face. "And how to help the musician truly express what they feel unfiltered and raw." Funding, of course, was an issue. Explaining Project Melody Core to grant committees without revealing its controversial genesis. Elvis's DNA was a delicate dance. He framed it as advanced neuro-musical research, focusing on the nine-so of emotional connection through sound. He managed to secure some initial grants, enough to build custom prototypes of their neural synchronizer, a sleek helmet-like device designed to provide biofeedback, helping users understand and train their brain's musical pathways. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie, but Aris insisted on its non-invasive nature. "It's a guide," he'd tell Maya, "not a controller." The scientific community remained largely skeptical when Aris presented preliminary findings at a closed-door symposium, detailing the brain regions involved and his hypothesis of the melody core pathways. He was met with polite but firm resistance. "Fascinating theory, Dr. Thorne," one renowned neurologist had said, "but highly speculative. Where's your empirical evidence? A theoretical pathway is one thing, a practical application. He needed proof. He needed a subject, not a patient, not a test tube, but a living, breathing, aspiring musician, someone with raw talent, but perhaps lacking the ability to fully connect with their audience, to truly convey the depths of their emotion. Someone whose journey could beautifully illustrate the potential of the melody core." He and Maya began their search, not in the polished halls of conservatories, but in the gritty real world. They looked for raw, untapped passion, for music that burst forth from a place of genuine feeling, even if it was unrefined. They scoured open mic nights and forgotten clubs, listened to buskers in subway stations, and watched countless amateur videos online. They were looking for that spark, that flicker of the melody core that Aris had glimpsed in the genetic blueprint of the king. He wasn't looking for a perfect musician. He was looking for a deeply feeling one, someone ready to unlock their full expressive potential. The search for a suitable candidate for Project Melody Core was far more challenging than Aris had anticipated. He and Maya scoured countless online videos, attended dozens of open mic nights, and even visited music schools. They encountered plenty of technically skilled musicians, but Aris wasn't looking for perfection. He was looking for a raw, untamed essence, a spark of the melody core that needed nurturing. One rainy Tuesday night, Maya dragged him to a small, dingy coffee shop on the wrong side of town. The air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and damp clothes. A young man, probably no older than 17, sat hunched over an old battered acoustic guitar. His hair fell into his eyes and he looked intensely uncomfortable. "This is Alex," Maya whispered, clutching Aris's arm. "He uploads videos sometimes, his voice. Just listen." Alex began to play, his fingers, though nimble, sometimes fumbled a chord. His voice wasn't polished, occasionally cracking on a high note, but there was something else. As he sang, his eyes closed. The nervousness melted away, replaced by an intense, almost painful vulnerability. He wasn't just singing words. He was pouring out emotions, pain, hope, longing. It was all there, raw and unfiltered. Aris felt a strange tug in his chest, a sensation he rarely experienced outside the sterile precision of scientific discovery. When Alex finished, the applause was sparse. Mostly polite, quickly packed up his guitar, avoiding eye contact, and disappeared into the shadows of the coffee shop. "He's got it," Aris said, his voice quiet but firm. "He has the raw material. The feeling, the connection is there, but it's unrefined, almost trapped." Maya nodded, her eyes shining. "He writes his own songs too. They're heartbreakingly honest." They approached Alex later, after everyone else had left. He was sitting alone at a table nursing a cold drink, looking lost. Aris, notoriously awkward in social situations, let Maya do most of the talking. She explained in vague but enthusiastic terms that they were researchers interested in the Nanko of musical expression. They offered him a chance to participate in a study, promising no invasive procedures, just a way to potentially enhance his connection to his music. Alex was suspicious, wary. He was a loner, burdened by an unspoken sadness. Music was his only outlet, a secret language he rarely shared. But there was something in Maya's genuine excitement and Aris's quiet, serious gaze that made him hesitate. He was a kid with big dreams and no path. And this, however strange, sounded like a path. After several more meetings, and with the reluctant permission of his guardian, Alex agreed. He was brought to a specialized private lab space within the institute, a warmer, more inviting room than Aris's usual sterile environment. "So, what is this thing?" Alex asked, eyeing the sleek neural synchronizer helmet with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "It's a biofeedback device," Aris explained patiently. "It reads your brain activity when you're making music. It doesn't put anything into your brain. Instead, it helps you understand your own brain's responses. We believe we can help you fine-tune the pathways responsible for emotional expression in your music." He omitted any mention of Elvis or the melody core gene. For now, it was too much, too soon. Alex put on the helmet. Aris started him with simple exercises, listening to different musical pieces, then trying to evoke specific emotions through his own playing. The first few sessions were frustrating. Alex struggled to translate his internal feelings into measurable brainwave patterns. He was used to pouring emotion out without thinking, not analyzing it, but slowly something began to shift. Aris and Maya would show him the real-time data, pointing out how certain patterns correlated with deeper emotional resonance in his music. They encouraged him to focus on the feeling of the sound, not just the technicalities. They talked about the subtle interplay between vulnerability and strength, about the courage it took to truly open up through a song. It wasn't magic. It was painstaking scientific coaching combined with Alex's inherent talent and the hidden potential of his own nascent melody core. Aris saw the faint, thrilling echoes of Elvis's genetic blueprint in Alex's brain, scans not identical but similar in their potential for powerful emotional connection. With each session, Alex's music didn't just get technically better. It gained an undeniable, almost palpable, emotional depth. He was beginning to find the voice he hadn't known. He truly possessed a voice that resonated with the profound, hidden melody within him. The day came for Aris Thorne to present his findings to a small, invite-only panel of scientific peers and music industry professionals. He felt a nervous flutter in his stomach, a sensation he rarely experienced. This wasn't just about data. It was about demonstrating a profound shift in how they understood artistic expression. He knew the skepticism would be fierce. The presentation room was hushed. Aris stood before a large screen displaying complex neural network diagrams and biofeedback data. He meticulously explained his theory of the melody core, a highly efficient, genetically influenced neural pathway that amplified emotional resonance and expression in music. He spoke generally about the source DNA without revealing Elvis's name, describing it only as an unparalleled historical musical talent. "This isn't about creating genetic clones or manipulating DNA," Aris stated firmly, his voice steadying as he found his rhythm. "It's about understanding the biological underpinnings of profound musical connection, and then using that understanding to develop non-invasive methods, like the neural synchronizer, to help individuals tap into their own inherent capacity for that deep connection." He then showed a series of brain scans before and after images of test subjects carefully anonymized. The after scans clearly showed increased synchronization in key brain regions. During musical performance, areas associated with emotion, empathy, and auditory processing. Data was compelling, but without context, without a personal story. It was just numbers. To truly illustrate the potential of this research, Aris continued, "I'd like to introduce a young musician who has been working with our technology. He represents the raw, untapped potential that we believe this understanding can help unlock." The doors at the back of the room opened and Alex walked in, his battered guitar in hand. He looked incredibly nervous, his gaze fixed on the floor. Panel members, mostly staid academics, eyed him with a mixture of curiosity and polite disinterest. This was a science presentation, not a concert. Alex took a seat on the small stage. Aris explained, "Before Alex uses our device, I want you to hear him, as he was when we first met him." He played a recording of Alex's raw, unpolished performance from the coffee shop. The passion was evident, but so was the shyness, the occasional falter. Then Aris instructed Alex to put on the neural synchronizer helmet. The soft hum of the device filled the room. "Now," Aris said, "Alex will perform the same song after several weeks of guided sessions with the synchronizer." Alex took a deep breath. As his fingers strummed the opening chords, a subtle change occurred. His posture straightened a fraction. His eyes, though still closed, seemed to hold a deeper vision. And then he sang. The voice that filled the room was still Alex's, but it was transformed. The rawness was still there, but now it was refined, focused, imbued with an undeniable clarity of emotion. Every note resonated, every word carried a weight that hadn't been present before. It wasn't just technically better, it was soulful. He wasn't just singing. He was pouring his entire being into the music, and the effect was electrifying. When he finished, there was a stunned silence, followed by hesitant, then enthusiastic applause. Even the most skeptical panel members shifted in their seats, visibly moved. A renowned music producer, known for his cynical nature, raised a hand. "Remarkable, young man. But Dr. Thorne, how can you definitively attribute this improvement to your device? This boy is clearly talented. Perhaps he simply gained confidence. Or had good vocal coaching." Another panelist, a neuroscientist, interjected. "Dr. Thorne, while your brain scans are interesting, they are still theoretical pathways. You haven't proven that your device directly caused this emotional amplification, rather than simply facilitating general improvement." Aris had anticipated this, and one we are actively addressing with more rigorous control groups. However, what we believe we are observing is an accelerated and targeted. It's not about teaching technique, but about deepening the musician's internal experience of music and their ability to translate that experience into samening that resonates, preftlesny, with others. He looked at Alex, who sat quietly, still immersed in the afterglow of his performance. "We're not creating prodigies from scratch. We're providing a guide, a mirror, for individuals to unlock the deeper musical potential they already possess. Within their own melody core, we believe this represents a fundy care. We believe this represents Fimervanum." Aris knew this was just the beginning of a long, uphill battle. But watching Alex, seeing the profound connection he had just forged with a room full of strangers, Aris felt a surge of quiet triumph. The data was important, but the feeling, the undeniable power of the music was the true breakthrough, and that he knew was something no one could deny. The skepticism from the scientific community was a hurdle, but Aris Thorne was used to uphill battles. What truly mattered was the undeniable change he saw in Alex. After that panel, Aris and Maya continued their work, refining the neural synchronizer, making the biofeedback more intuitive, more direct. The real breakthrough came when they stopped focusing solely on brainwave patterns and started incorporating elements of emotional and physiological feedback. Aris hypothesized that the melody core wasn't just about neural pathways, but also about the intricate connection between the mind and body, the gut feeling, the goosebumps, the almost electric charge that music could send to a person. The neural synchronizer was redesigned to not only read brain activity, but also subtle changes in heart rate, skin conductivity, and muscle tension, providing Alex with a holistic map of his internal state as he played and sang. "Think of it like this, Alex," Aris explained one day, gesturing at the complex real-time display on the screen. "When you hit that perfect note, or when you truly feel the emotion of a lyric, your brain, your heart, your entire body aligns. The synchronizer helps you see and understand that alignment. It's like learning to navigate a deeply internal landscape." Alex, who had grown more confident and articulate through the process, nodded. "It's like it tells me when I'm truly inside the song, when I'm not just playing it, but being it." And that was precisely it. Alex's practice sessions transformed. He didn't just rehearse, he connected. The neural synchronizer didn't make him a robot. It made him more human, more expressive. He learned to consciously access that profound emotional depth that Aris had identified in the melody core. His voice gained layers. His guitar playing became more nuanced, and his stage presence, once awkward, became mesmerizing. He didn't become a showman. He became a conduit for pure, unadulterated emotion. The results were undeniable. Alex started playing at larger venues, first locally, then regionally. People didn't just enjoy his music, they were moved by it. They cried, they cheered, they felt a connection to his songs that transcended mere entertainment. Reviewers spoke of his raw authenticity, his ability to touch the soul, and how he seemed to channel something ancient and powerful through his melodies. Aris watched Alex's rise with a quiet satisfaction. He'd never cared for fame, but he recognized the validation it brought to his research. This wasn't about creating a clone of Elvis. It was about demonstrating that the potential for such profound musical connection resided within many, waiting to be unblocked. One evening, after a particularly moving performance where Alex had brought an entire theater to tears with a ballad, Aris and Maya sat with him backstage. Aris began. "There's something important we need to tell you about how this research truly began." He then, for the first time, revealed the source of his discovery: Elvis Presley's DNA. He explained the melody core gene, not as a genetic anomaly to be copied, but as a blueprint for understanding the pinnacle of musical emotional resonance. Alex listened, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Then understand it." "So I have a piece of Elvis in me," he whispered, touching his chest. "Not a piece, Alex," Maya corrected gently. "But the research we did on his DNA helped us understand how that deep connection works. You're not Elvis, you're Alex. And what you do, what you feel, it's uniquely yours. We just helped you amplify it." Aris nodded. Alex looked at his hands, then at his guitar. A profound sense of purpose settled over him. He wasn't a copy, he was a continuation. A new voice echoing a timeless truth about music. The secret of the king's magic wasn't to be prakatote, but to be understood to inspire a new generation to find their own resonant harmony within. Alex's rise to prominence wasn't meteoric in the sensational, fleeting way of pop stars. It was a slow, steady ascent, built on the unwavering, heartfelt connection he forged with his audience. He didn't have a flashy image or catchy gimmicks. He had his music, raw and real, amplified by the understanding Aris's research had provided. People didn't just listen to Alex, they experienced him. They spoke of his concerts as almost spiritual events where shared emotion flowed freely. This undeniable impact forced the scientific and musical communities to pay attention. Aris, now no longer just Dr. Thorne, the quirky geneticist, was invited to speak at major conferences. He meticulously explained the melody core concept and the neural synchronizer, always emphasizing that it was a tool for unlocking inherent potential, not for creating. He shared Alex's brain scans with Alex's enthusiastic permission, showing the incredible neurological changes, the enhanced emotional connectivity, without ever breaching Alex's privacy or revealing the Elvis DNA until the time was right. Our goal, Aris would explain, is not to create a factory of pop stars. It's to help every individual, whether they want to perform or experience it more pro podcape, is sprayed. Musicians of all genres struggling with creative blocks or a lack of connection with their audience sought out Aris and Maya. They were looking for a quick fix, but for a deeper understanding of their own artistry. Music therapists saw its potential to help patients express suppressed emotions, to reconnect with themselves and others through sound. Educators envisioned a future where music wasn't just taught technically, but emotionally, where students were guided to understand the feeling behind the notes. Aris and Maya established the Resonance Institute, a nonprofit dedicated to researching and teaching the principles of the melody core. The neural synchronizer was refined into smaller, more accessible versions used not just by professional musicians, but by students, by individuals seeking to manage anxiety through musical expression, by families using music to connect. Finally, in a landmark press conference with Alex by his side, Aris revealed the complete truth. He presented the detailed findings of Elvis Presley's melody core gene, emphasizing that Elvis was the Rosetta Stone that allowed them to understand this profound aspect of human biology. Elvis Presley was a singular talent, Aris stated, his voice resonating with newfound confidence. He possessed a natural, innate gift, a specific genetic confusion in audiences on an unparalleled level. Our research, sparked by the analysis of his DNA, has allowed us to understand the mechanism of that connection, that it has also taught us something even more profound, that the capacity for this deep, even more profound, but it has only taught us something even more profound. Alex and his journey demonstrates that while Elvis had a head start, so to speak, the pathways he naturally possessed can be understood, can be trained, can be amplified in others, not through genetic manipulation, but through a deeper understanding. Of our own brains and bodies, through mindful engagement with music. This technology, this understanding, is helping everyone else find their own melody core, their own way to sing their truth. The response was overwhelmingly positive. The initial sensationalism faded, replaced by genuine fascination and hope. The legacy of Elvis Presley, once confined to a specific era and a single irreplaceable icon, was now reimagined. It wasn't about trying to recreate his magic, but about unlocking the potential for magic in everyone. The melody core became a household term, symbolizing the innate human capacity for deep, emotional connection through music. Aris, standing in his quiet lab, now surrounded by the joyful sounds of music from the nearby Resonance Institute, often thought about that tiny vial of DNA. He'd started with a cold scientific curiosity, analyzing the remains of a legend. He had ended up helping to ignite a revolution in human connection, proving that the king's greatest gift wasn't just his voice, but the revelation that every human heart holds a song waiting to be truly felt, truly heard, and truly shared. The world was now a more harmonious place, and music in all its forms sang with a newfound, profound soul.